My name's Shiraz Bayjoo. I'm an artist originally from Mauritius, and my work explores the legacies of European colonialism in the Western Indian Ocean region. So in this exhibition, you're going to see a body of work called Searching for Libertalia, which is a series of works that kind of explores the process towards independence in African post-colonies. It is situated around Madagascar, and it begins by exploring this story originally written by Daniel Defoe in the 1700s called A General History of Piracy. And the exhibition kind of entwines three different historical narratives together that kind of present almost like a pseudo-archive that looks at the repetitions of history and the ideas of unionism versus independence. You're also going to see on display the work of Brooke, an Australian artist, and his film Smash It. It's a form of video essay, you could describe, that looks at Indigenous protocol and the kind of rewriting of Indigenous histories in Australia. So Brook is an Indigenous Australian artist. He's an activist and a big proponent for Indigenous rights in Australia. We have worked together for several years, and one of the reasons why it was very important for me to invite Brook into this exhibition with me is because when I was writing the script for the Searching for Libertalia film, Brook himself was actually very influential and supportive through that writing process that I actually did here at the Glim Vivian. And it is through that sort of support and dialogue that I felt that his film Smash It was a very good balance to the fictional installation that I have created in Searching for Libertalia. Brook presents a kind of documentary work that sort of sits in a very nice balance to that. My making process often begins with quite a lot of research, looking at collections and archives, similarly to what you can see here within this vitrine sculptural installation here. I draw upon lots of different types of research, looking at both academic texts and sort of more sort of contemporary research around the region, but I also look at things at different forms of knowledge making, such as community and vernacular story making. And it's important for me to sort of balance out different kinds of voices within the research, within my work, to kind of draw out more complex and more nuanced ways of understanding the narratives and histories that have kind of led us to where we position ourselves today, and in many ways how we imagine ourselves today. I work across quite a large variety of mediums, from film and sculpture to painting and photography. This in itself is quite important because, in a sense, it's about creating almost a cosmology of objects that kind of sit in balance with each other. And in that way, I guess it's not about necessarily presenting an exhibition of paintings or photographs. It's about different kinds of making being able to give us different degrees of proximity to storytelling. I often use, for example, films to kind of create the broad strokes, to kind of present the landscape of a space. And then things like paintings or smaller, more intimate kind of object making perhaps allows the viewer to come closer in and have a different kind of sensibility and proximity to the work. So the work very much focuses on East Africa and the Western Indian Ocean region, quite specifically, I guess, to the island of Mauritius, where I'm from, as I described before, but also to the spaces around it of the Mascarene archipelago, but also spaces as Madagascar and beyond. It's important for me to support the kind of making and writing of narratives around these spaces. Often this kind of work is work that hasn't been done in the first place, and so in a way, part of the research that we often do as artists, in a sense, kind of almost works in a slightly archaeological way sometimes, in kind of piecing together pieces of knowledge, fragments of understanding around space, in order to kind of help create better understandings about the regions that we inhabit. But also what's quite important about these island colonies, in a sense, or post-colonies in a sense, particularly places like Mauritius, where is often described as a place where there were no people that were living on the islands prior to European colonization in the late 15th century, early 16th century onwards. And so these islands become very sedimented in terms of their layerings of people, because everybody that is in spaces like Mauritius today have been brought there through what is, in a way you could describe as the mechanism of empire. And so it becomes a very interesting and very acutely aware place to be able to kind of understand what those legacies and movements of people are, what it means to bring people together under the extreme pressures of slavery and indentured labor, and the hybridities and growth of identity that then comes with that in the strategies of survival that come from within communities. And strategies in many ways that perhaps we can understand have existed amongst communities all over the world, different ways that we have overcome adversities. And so in this sense, my work kind of tries to understand both the layers of trauma that exist often within the landscape, within the spaces that we occupy, but also how, you know, our communities, our families, you know, have been able to move out of that, have been able to move forward, have been able to deal with these traumas, and in a sense, the culture that gets created around it. So these are often some of the major themes and thoughts that take place in my work.